Namasarvebhya. This is the course on Sanatana Dharma for youth. The speaker for the day is Dr. CSR Prabhu, and the topic is how do we learn science from our scriptures? It would be a continuation of the talk from yesterday. We will start with Prarthana and then I'll hand it over to Prabhu Garu. Om Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Dhanyavada. Over to you, Dr. Prabhu.
Okay. I'll start with a Saraswati Vandana Slokam. Today is Sri Panchami. Omkara Panjara Sukhi Upanishadudhyana Kedikalakanthi Agama Vipina Mayuri Aryamantar Vibhave Gauri Dayamana Dirghanayana Desikharupena Darshadaya Abhyudayam Vamakucha Vihita Veenam Vanim Sangita Matruka Vande. The meaning of this sloka is knowledge. Who is Saraswati? Saraswati is not a person. She doesn't have a mobile phone number. It is knowledge. And that entire knowledge is embedded, enshrined within, encapsulated within one sound. That is Om. Omkara Panjara Sukhi. There is a cage called Om and there is a parrot called Saraswati, which is encapsulated in that cage. In Om itself, all knowledge is encapsulated. That's what it means. Upanishadudhyana Keli Kanti. Saraswati is also a cuckoo, quail, singing sweetly in the garden by name Upanishads. That means in the Upanishads, very beautifully, the greatest knowledge is manifested. The third is Agama Vipina Mayuri. She is a peacock dancing in the forest called Agama or Vedas. So the Vedas are like forest, huge and impenetrable, and she is a beautiful peacock dancing there. And where does she live? She lives in the hearts of respected Vivarya Vantar Vibhav. And how does she appear to us? Deshika Rupena Darshan. She appears as teacher, guru. So there is no such person, but it is knowledge which is delivered through the teacher. Therefore, teacher is the one of the appearances of Saraswati. So with Om Yam Medham Devagana Pitarasyopaasate Tayama Madhya Medhayagne Medha Vinankuru. That Medha which our ancestors and the divine beings have performed Upasana, may that Medha come to me now and enlighten me. Make me Medhavi. This is the prayer in the Veda Mantras. So with that prayer, we'll start our class today. Now, how do we get science from these scriptures? That is the point. That's the question. The first point I brought out yesterday was that everything comes out from the previous. If I have written a book, I have written a book based on previous knowledge, previous books or previous papers or previous lectures, whatever. No knowledge comes automatically by itself. So when people wrote books in English, in mathematics, in physics, in chemistry, they used the previous books. Those previous books were in Latin or in Arabic or in Sanskrit. Firstly, the Arabic people have translated Sanskrit books into Arabic. And then the Europeans translated Arabic books into Latin or French. Hello? So the knowledge diffusion, knowledge transfer took place from Sanskrit, Vedas or post-Vedic Shastras, etc., into Arabic language text by translation, which was commissioned by the Arab kings. All the scholars, all the Brahmins of Sindh shifted to Arabia, and they were instrumental in translating the Sanskrit text into Arabic. And from Arabic text, all subjects, mathematics, physics, chemistry, astronomy, metallurgy, were all taken into the Europe, in Latin, in French, German, and finally English. English was the last of all the languages. English did not exist for a long time. Even in England, people spoke French, not English. There was no English. Latin was the classical language of Europe. So English came out around 400 years ago as a combination of French with Norman Saxons. Saxons and Normans, they, whatever words they used, they were used in along with French to bring out English. So what we see today is just a knowledge in English, which is the language itself was originated 400 years ago. The subjects and textbooks of science originated much less, 200 years, 150 years, maximum 300 years, as we discussed yesterday. Now the point is that when you want to see calculus, for example, calculus we have studied in our textbooks, in our school and college. Differential calculus by Shanti Narayan, integral calculus by Shanti Narayan. We have studied those books. But who originated calculus? It will be written in the book that Leibniz and others like Newton, they have. Is that true? There was no calculus before it. So actually the fact is that around 14th century AD, there was a scholar called Madhava in Kerala who gave the first concept of calculus, differential calculus. And the books which he wrote in Sanskrit at that time were transferred by Jesuit priests around 16th, 17th century. So people like Leibniz, Newton, they copied those books. No doubt they might have developed further. And even in the case of computer science, the three personalities, Charles Babbage, De Morgan, and George Boole, all the three learned Sanskrit first. Then they studied various Sanskrit texts, like Einstein also did. And they got the ideas from there and they presented. Like for example, Boolean algebra based on 0 and 1. George Boole, his wife also said they're all Indophiles, Sanskritists, and De Morgan's theorems. So what has happened is like old wine in new bottle. People take the old concepts from the old books and they present it as if it is a new concept. Please mute your mics. And they present it as if it is their own. So this is called, please mute your mics. So this kind of a technique. Admin, can you mute all mics, please? So this kind of technique of copying from other books is called plagiarism. So now if you want to write a research paper, you will do a plagiarism check. Whether any such thing is already there anywhere in the internet. So why such plagiarism check was not done at that time? Because nobody knew. So as long as people don't know, you can carry on. Can you mute your mics? Hello? All mute mics should be muted. Admin?
1
Yes,
minute.
sir. I'm making, sir. I'm muted, sir.
Okay. So this sequence, for example, if you take the botany subject. So in every botany book, there will be a leaf structure given. And that that leaf structure was originally there in one of the Nigantus, and that was first copied into a Latin book, and then it was translated into French and finally English. So similarly, numbers 0 to 9, decimal number system, algebra. Bhaskaracharya wrote a book called Lilavati on the name of his daughter. It is full algebra. And the word algebra, I don't know how many of you know, is nothing but an Arabic word called al-Jabar. That is the name of the person who wrote algebra in Arabic by copying from Bhaskaracharya's books. So this way, in fact, around 1,000 inventions of Europe, Western nations, were already shown to be existing in Arabic books, and in exchange, the Arabs got from India. So this is a fact. This is now being exposed in a big way, and still a lot of exposure and claims have to be placed one by one to demolish the Eurocentric origin of science and technology. So I'll take two specific cases in which I'm deeply involved. One is physics. So normally people think that until Newton discovered the laws of motion and gravitation, when the apple fell on his head, only then the whole world came to know that there is what is called gravitation. So before Newton was born, was there no gravitation knowledge? How did they construct temples or palaces without knowing gravitation? No answer for this. Is it possible to construct, say, Ellora temple, where the whole mountain rock is carved into a temple, without knowing what is gravitation? Similarly, laws of motion, force, acceleration, inertia, reaction and reaction. So there is something fishy when people say that Newton found all this. It is very similar to when Ramdev came and propagated yoga, though yoga was already there around. He propagated it in such a way that everybody started thinking, common people on the street, because he brought yoga to street. So the common people on the street thought that Ramdev is the father of yoga. Ramdev himself told in some of the lectures, everybody thinks that I am the originator of yoga system. But I tell them I am not the originator. Patanjali is the originator. Is that true? Patanjali himself compiled the knowledge of yoga as it existed until his time, before his time. So this kind of fake claims without knowing the subject are the real cause of misery. So in the case of physics, this book, The Physics of Vaiseshika, which I have with me, you can get it from Tirupati Vedic University. It is published by Sri Venkateswara Vedic University. And I am the author. This was published around 15 years back. I have spent more than 20 years in preparing this book, out of which 15 years was my own work and 5 years they took to publish. It's a very tough task. For the first time in the world, I showed physics in Sanskrit. All other books which were there, derived and deciphered from Sanskrit, were on mathematics, on astronomy, etc., etc. No book was there on physics. And those who interpreted Vaiseshika prior to this book, they have interpreted as if it is mathematics, as if it is logic, nyaya, because they themselves didn't know any physics. I was shocked to see when I met one of the top experts of Vaiseshika Darshana of the Shankara Mutt at Hyderabad, of the Shankaracharya Mutt of Sringeri at Hyderabad. I told him one sutra, Apam Sanghato Velayanancha Tejas Samyogat. Apa, that is liquid state, will be decomposed or synthesized if there is contact with energy. I asked him, what is this? He could not explain because he had no idea what that mechanism is. And we know in chemistry and in physics and in electricity, when we pass current in water, it will decompose. And if current is passed between hydrogen and oxygen, they will synthesize into water. This is what happens in the sky, in the clouds. So he could not connect this statement with the physical phenomenon, let alone all other statements. So the pitiable situation into which our Indian scholars, Sanskrit scholars, they landed is that they can only interpret physics, not physics, but philosophy. Even in physics, when Vaiseshika is clearly physics, they cannot interpret physics from Vaiseshika. They will interpret philosophy or religion. And the over domination of the literary kavya kind of studies. Kavyas are not shastras. They are imaginations of the poets. When you teach Sanskrit, you teach those kavyas, and that is the end of it. You don't teach any shastras. Then there's no way they can understand any sciences. So the simple answer to this question of today, how to learn science from Sanskrit, you have to study the shastras. There are hundreds of shastras. Vaiseshika Sutra is the Vaiseshika. It is physics. Similarly, there is Ayurveda Shastra, there is Yoga Shastra, there is Mantra Shastra, there is Tantra Shastra, there is a Ashva Shastra by Nakula. That book is very famous. It is available. Horsology. And similarly, Kaumara Bhritya, that is nothing but pediatrics. So the Shushrota Samhita is about surgery. A lot of people don't know that even that books exist. So in Ayurveda, there are more than 2,000 books. And some are very ancient, starting from Charaka Samhita. And it goes on till today. Even today, people are writing books in Ayurveda and in Yoga. So these are all Shastras. If you study them, then you will see science in them. Because the word Shastra itself means science. Well embodied knowledge, connected knowledge. That is what is Shastra is all about. And science is also that. In fact, in some languages like Malayalam, the word Shastra is used as a synonym for science. Kerala Shastra Parishat, Kerala Science Academy. So in this book, The Physics of Vaisheshika, he has given many sutras pertaining to gravitation, force, acceleration. I have written very clearly, like for example, the first law of motion, inertia. Asamavayat samanya karyam karmana vidyate. Due to not being inherent, motion does not exist as generalized effect always. That means until and unless force is applied, there will be no motion or rest. So being not inherent in material entities or substances, motion cannot be generalized effect. It means that motion, which is a result of multiple substances, is not known and it is not found in combination with them. Motion is not necessarily inherent in a substance. It has to be caused. This can be considered to be the equivalent of the first law of motion, which describes inertia. This is my own interpretation. And similarly, he has given causality principle. What is the, somebody asks you, what is one single principle, which is the bedrock, foundation of all scientific thinking, scientific process, scientific inquiry, scientific investigation? One single principle, that is causality. That means for everything there is a cause behind. Karana bhavat karya bhava. That is the first sutra of this part 2 of first chapter. Karana bhavat karya bhava of another Vaiseshika sutras. Without a cause, there is no effect. Natu karya bhavat karana. But there can be a cause without effect. But there cannot be an effect without a cause. And similarly, he has given various fundamental definitions, even what is existence, what is non-existence, and what is matter, what is energy, and various other laws of motion. Second law, third law, fourth law, force, acceleration. And third law is the action and reaction, your opposite. That is when he is describing the an interaction between a stone. Let us say this is a stone, and there is a hand. This hand is hitting the stone. So he says, Abhihataje, Hasta Samyogat, Musale Karma. Karma is motion. Hasta Samyogat, due to Abhigata, there is a forward motion in the stone. And immediately he also says, Musala Samyogat, Haste Karma. That means there is a motion in the hand also. After hand hits the stone, stone goes forward, but there is a reaction on the hand also. If it is very hard, then hand also will go back. So action and reaction has been referred, and it's a question of proper understanding and proper interpretation, which was missing. And similarly, I have explained other fields like projectile motion, Isha Yogapat Karmanyatve Hetuhu, Adyo Karmasat Karma Karita Samyoga. That is Samskarat Uttaram Karma Tadhottaram Cha. He says talking of a bow and arrow. So the bow is coming out of the arrow. The force of the string of the arrow will result in the motion of the arrow. The string of the bow, the force with which it is left, results in the forward motion of the arrow. Tat karma karitacha, having performed that motion, it will acquire some samskara. Samskara uttaram karma. Due to that samskara, further motion and further motion and so on until samskara abhave gurutva patanam. So it will fall down to free fall due to gravity. When that samskara is no more left. And what is that samskara? We all know it is kinetic energy. So the projectile motion has been described. Force and acceleration and gravitation as acceleration. Like Nodana Abhavat Samita Samyogat Chapadrivyam. That is no Nordhana Tiriyagam. Nodana Abhavat Nordhana Tiriyagam. No upward motion or no downward motion will happen without a force being applied. So, Gurutvat Patanam, the falling, free fall is due to Gurutva, and that is downward motion. And obviously, when you apply this rule, no downward motion will happen without the force. What is that force? Gurutva, gravitation. In fact, the word gravity in English comes from Greek, which is derived from Sanskrit Gurutva. So, friends, we can easily see that, as in the case of Vaisheshika, the original knowledge of physics in Kannada Vaisheshika Sutras has been transferred to Greeks first. Demetrius gave the atomic theory much later to Kannada's atomic theory. And then they came into English, French, German, and that's what we study today as gospel truth. Like Ramdev saying, that others think that he originated entire yoga. So everybody says he has originated that subject. For a small child, the small child doesn't know that the food which the child gets comes from the agricultural fields far away. She thinks the food is coming from mother's hand. Therefore, mother is giving food. Mother is the maker of the food, the originator of food. In the same way, the immediate source is confused or claimed falsely as the original source. This is about physics. Now, the time is getting up. There's also a very important subject called Vimana Shastra. I think I will speak about it later. I have another book that is Vimana Shastra. I have not written this book, but I have used this book in a big way. So it contains a very advanced technology. I'll close today's session by distinguishing what is low technology and what is high technology. So low technology means temples or sculptures or town planning, buildings. So, and ordinary Ayurveda works, Vastu works, temples are constructed, all without any connection with modern science or technology or engineering. Whereas high technology is dealing with Vimanas, Astras, which have stopped being existent after Mahabharata war. In the Kali Yuga, high technology does not exist. But if you look at the references in the text about the Dwapara Yuga and Treta Yuga, Krita Yuga, and so on, you have references of very high technology, like Vimanas being used to fly not only on around Earth but even to other worlds, other planets, other lokas. Gramat Gramantram va, Deshat Desantram va, Lokas Lokantram va. So that is the definition of Vimana. And the yantras used there, 31 yantras have been used. I'll get back to you some other time on the Viman Shastra in detail. I think I can stop now. Time is up, right?
Another 3 more minutes is there, Guruji.
Okay. So the post Mahabharata war, we have only low technology because they have actually, very decisively and consciously withdrawn. You remember the Mahabharata war. At the end of Mahabharata war, the Ashwadhama throws a Brahmasiro Namaka Astra to destroy the Pandavas, and Arjuna throws its opposite. They both fight. And finally, Arjuna would withdraw both because Ashwadhama could not withdraw one. And then, after that point of time, Vyasa, Narada, and Lord Krishna, they made a detent. They made sure that all astras are withdrawn permanently. So there are no astras during Kali Yuga. You cannot make any astra today because they are very dangerous. Even in the modern times, the nuclear bombs and all, they have nuclear detent treaties. They will not use. So better not to make at all. Why to have treaties after making? Similarly, here the great astras were banned, and similarly, Vimanas also are lost, and so many other things. 90% of the entire ancient knowledge, advanced high technology, is lost in the Kali Yuga in modern times. That's why we don't have Vimanas being made left and right and astras being used left and right, or even shapas, or so many other extraordinary powers which we think are miracles are not possible because we don't know them. They were there, but now we lost them. Like even the birth of Kauravas was something like tissue culture. Test tube. Drona means test baby, test tube. Drona was born in a test tube. The word test, Drona means dunne. That is like a pot, like a test tube. Kumbha Sambhava, his name was. And all the Kauravas were 100 pieces of the same fetus, that tissue culture. So all these have been extensively deployed and they're much more advanced than what we have today. And they could not only do that, but they could even choose and pick genes and produce humans who were tailor-made, designer humans, genetic engineering. In fact, the caste system itself later became a genetic engineering feat. But within that, the individualized genetic engineering was done. So it is all very amazing, very extraordinary. And the past life connection with the present life through genes, the characteristics of the past life coming to the present life through genetic processes. It is an amazing research, open area for research. I wish all of you take interest and study some of these open big questions, like what I mentioned just now, many examples. Thank you.
Dhanyavadaha, Guruji. If there are any questions, Guruji, you can take the questions if there are any questions. If there are any
Yes.
questions, please unmute yourself
Namaskar,
and ask.
Namaskar Guruji, Prabhu sir. Sir, I want to have this Vaisheshika Darshan and Viman Shastra. How to get these copies?
No, you have to approach Vaisheshika Darshana. You can approach the Tirupati Vedic University, SV Vedic University website is also there. You can place order. They have sold hundreds and thousands of copies. It's only 150 rupees.
So
Or you can Xerox. Or when you come next time to Hyderabad, you can Xerox this. I think I've given you one copy, no?
no, sir. Actually, so you kindly send the address of the Tirupati, so I
No,
can
this you
get
can
it.
just easily get. It is called Vedic University. Sri Venkateswara Vedic University. Here
Oh.
it is. It is the down Tirupati, not upstairs.
And
They
Viman
have a
Shastra?
catalog. Viman Shastra is not available. It is out of print. Any other questions?
Mahodaya, I have a question. After the recording is stopped, I will ask. Is it okay?
Okay.
Okay. We can recite the prarthana and close then. Then I can ask.
Yes.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhiraha Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhavet Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Swasti. We shall stand up for national anthem. जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल वंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष माहे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे जय हिंद. धन्यवादाः. We will close the recording now.
Yes, ma'am, I'm closing.